The Thressi Convergence arrived at coordinates Delta 79er, the way a tide arrives, not all at once, but inevitable. I watched them build on my board for 4 hours before they stopped moving. 312 vessels by the final count. Survey ships, I assumed at first, when the first dozen emerged from fold space at the edge of the system. Then the silhouettes resolved on passive scan, and I stopped assuming anything. They were not survey ships. My name is Warrant Officer Dessa Mar, and I was the communications specialist aboard TFS Caros Bell, a Renian-class Corvette, 91 meters from bow to aft thruster housing, crew of 38, built for exactly the kind of quiet work nobody in a fleet press release ever photographs. We ran picket lines, diplomatic pre-contact relays, the sorts of assignments that kept us 3 light days from anything that would make a decent headline. The Caros Bell had one fixed-focus mass sensor, a lateral array jamming suite we were not authorized to use in declared treaty space, and a comm rig that I had rebuilt from salvage components twice in 18 months. She was not a warship. She was, as our captain liked to say, a very loud letter. The briefing packet we had received 11 days prior said, the Thressi Convergence had requested a diplomatic introduction to a human fleet presence. The Terran Diplomatic Corps had agreed to a coordinated rendezvous. We were assigned the picket role, arrive early, hold position at the edge of the contact zone, and relay traffic between the fleet and the Convergence delegation once both sides were in position. The fleet never came. I don't know to this day whether command made the decision in the 30 minutes after the Convergence finished massing, or whether the order had been cut earlier and simply held for the moment it would land with the most weight. What I know is that at 0614 station time, my console chimed with a priority amber instruction, and I read it twice before I keyed the captain's comm. "Ma'am," I said, "we have new orders." Captain Leon Sauvage was a compact woman in her early 50s who had spent the first half of her career in electronic warfare and the second half in assignments that didn't appear on promotion packets. She came through the hatch to my station, read the screen, and was quiet for a long moment. "Confirm receipt," she said. I confirmed it. We were to cross the gap. We, meaning us. The Caros Bell alone, no fleet, no escort. We were to initiate first contact with the Thressi Convergence on behalf of the Terran Compact, conduct ourselves with full diplomatic standing, and make ourselves available for whatever form of introduction the Convergence chose to offer. I looked at my passive scan board. 312 ships. The smallest of them was 4 times our length. "Ma'am." "Mar." Her voice was flat and final. "Get me a clean channel." We moved at 1/4 drive. That was the captain's call, and I understood it without asking. At 1/4 we read as deliberate, not cautious, and not aggressive. Running lights on, transponder broadcasting in every compact standard, and the 3 convergence protocols we had in our library. I held the channel open on all of them simultaneously and said nothing, because silence at that moment was louder than any greeting we could have transmitted. The Convergence fleet's sensor activity changed the moment we cleared the picket line. I could see it on the electronic warfare passive display. Not what they were scanning with, exactly, but the shape of their attention shifting. For 4 hours they had been pointed at the edge of the system, waiting. Now they were pointed at us. 312 sets of sensors converging on 91 meters of compact hull and 38 crew members. Here is the thing about the Thressi Convergence that the briefing packet had not fully conveyed. They were not, in any meaningful sense, a military culture. They were a merchant cartel that had absorbed enough smaller states over 4 centuries to develop what they called a verification fleet, not an invasion force, but a negotiating force, assembled to demonstrate consequence. Their logic, as near as any compact analyst had decoded it, was transactional at the deepest level. Mass equaled seriousness. The size of the fleet you brought to a meeting was the opening bid in any conversation. They had brought 312 ships to tell us they were serious. We had brought 1. I watched the sensor activity shift again, not the aggressive lock of targeting systems, but something more like confusion. The Convergence fleet was recategorizing us. I could see the query pulses in the passive display, rapid and repetitive. They were asking their own sensors whether they were reading us correctly. 91 meters, 1 vessel, on a diplomatic channel. "Captain," I said, "they're running classification loops. They can't figure out what we are." She was standing behind my right shoulder. What do you mean they can't? I mean their taxonomy doesn't have a slot for this. I tapped the display. They're looking for a fleet. They're looking for something that matches the size of what they sent. We don't match. They're looping. There was a pause. Keep the channel open. Yes, ma'am. What happened next is difficult to describe without making it sound more dramatic than it felt in the moment. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt quiet, and very cold, and very precise. Captain Sauvage ordered the drive plates open to full passive emission. Not a powered maneuver, just the plates themselves open to space, radiating the waste heat from our reactor at full spread. It is a posture. It means we are not hiding anything about what we are. Every emission profile we had, we wore openly. The classification loop stopped. There was a long silence on all channels, 47 seconds, which I know because I was watching the clock. Then a single convergence vessel separated from the main body. Not the largest, not the smallest. A mid-sized ship that their fleet registry, which we had been given as part of the briefing packet, identified as a diplomatic tender. It moved toward us at an unhurried pace. I opened a response channel and kept my voice even. Convergence tender, this is TFS Caros Bell, Terran Compact Diplomatic Relay, first contact designation. We are receiving you. Go ahead. The voice that came back was translated through our library into something that resembled speech, clipped, tonal, stripped of whatever resonance the original had possessed. It said, "We transmitted a request for a fleet presence." "Yes," I said. "We are the Compact's response." Another pause. Longer this time. "One vessel." "One vessel," I confirmed. I could feel the captain's stillness behind me. She said nothing. Neither did I, after that. We let the silence work. The Thressi Convergence, as I came to understand them better in the months that followed, organized the world by ratio. The ratio of resources committed to a task told them everything about how seriously the committing party rated that task. By their logic, the Compact had just told them something unambiguous. We rated this meeting so low it required only a picket Corvette. The insult should have been total. It should have ended the conversation, and perhaps started something worse. It didn't, and the reason it didn't took me a long time to fully understand. What they could not process, what broke their taxonomy completely, was the composure. We had come in alone, one vessel, running lights on, no weapons signature, no jamming, no evasion, at 1/4 drive, and we had opened every emission profile we possessed, and held the channel in silence. We were not hiding, and we were not apologizing, and we were not asking for anything. We were simply there, 91 meters of hull and 38 people, in the middle of 312 ships, waiting for them to begin. Their ratio logic said we should have been afraid. There was no fear in our sensor profile. Their logic said we should have asserted dominance with mass, or with firepower, or with something measurable. We had asserted nothing. We had simply arrived and made ourselves readable. What they could not categorize was a species for whom this was unremarkable. Not brave, not reckless, just ordinary. The diplomatic tender came to within 2 kilometers and matched our drift. What followed was 6 hours of preliminary exchange, protocols, authentication, the slow machinery of first contact, conducted in translated bursts, across a channel I kept open and stable the entire time, my hands on the board, watching the signal strength, watching for anything I might need to compensate for. The main convergence fleet held position throughout. They did not advance, and they did not withdraw. By the end of the 6th hour, we had a framework, not a treaty, not even a promise of one. A framework, the Compact's preferred term for an agreement to keep talking. It was enough. We filed our after-action report 7 days later, when we made port. The report was 3 pages. The diplomatic corps classified it within the hour. I never saw the assessment they wrote from it. What I know is this: the Thressi Convergence sent a delegation to Compact space 4 months later. They came in 3 ships. We received them with 1. That was their first indication that whatever ratio they thought they understood, they were going to have to start the calculation over. Some things you can only learn by being in the room when the silence holds.